Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Rancor Reptiles. Today I'm coming at you with another herp talk. If you like these talks, leave a like, subscribe, comment down below, maybe on next video's theme. Today we're going to be talking about some of the tools you might need for keeping some reptiles or amphibians. Now, of course, you're going to need the common sense stuff right off the bat, like heating lamps, heat mats, thermostats, things like that, right? To just have a proper setup built up to provide parameters, right? However, I'm going to be talking about some of the odds and ends that you will probably need in the long run. One of those things you'll probably need is super glue. Super glue is probably is a lifesaver for me when you really don't need something to move. Super glue kind of it really has helped me out. Super glue has not plugged holes, but it has helped me stick pieces of wood together. It has really helped me build up like different types of enclosures, and if I really don't want those pieces of wood or pieces of rocks to move for health or for aesthetic reasons, super glue really does come in clutch there. So having a tube of super glue on hand is always very handy. And of course, if you accidentally break something, super glue is always there. So I would recommend just having super glue on hand. Most people do. However, if you don't, it's a pretty nice tool to have. The second thing you can have is a feeder dish. Now, most people have like a water dish. However, feeder dishes are a little different. I've seen porcelain made ones where it's like a regular dish. However, it has a lip on the end, on the top. This prevents things like crickets and mealworms from climbing up, and it's pretty effective. I've also seen people make them out of like a small deli cup, and all they do is cut out, a center portion, and so there's a plastic like lip on the deli cup. That works as well. However, these feeder dishes are really nice if you're trying to prevent mealworms from escaping and getting all over the place. This is a very good thing to have. Of course, you're able to just throw in your feeders. However, if you have substrate, mealworms will dig in and get lost. Dubias will also dig in and kind of hide out. To prevent that, you can give it to them in these feeder dishes. So it's pretty convenient. Next is something a little more, probably a little more handy. And you need, basically, if you have any tropical diurnal species or anything that needs a good amount of UVB, like bearded dragons, dart frogs, stuff like that, you can get UVB measuring tools. There's a very expensive meter that you can get off Amazon that goes for around $200, pretty expensive. However, that gives you an accurate reading on the amount of UVB. Or you can buy something like there's these cheap UVB cards where there's like this pattern on the card that changes color if depending on how strong the UVB rays are. Of course, it doesn't give you really an exact amount of UVB. It just kind of lets you know whether you're getting any. And that, if you don't have enough money, that's at least a great alternative to have to basically signal you to change out your bulbs, to get bulbs that do give out a lot of good UVB. I read through a lot of comments seeing if it was just, smoke and mirrors. However, a lot of people have confirmed that it at least lets them know if there's UVB output from their bulbs. So that's a pretty nice tool to have, and they're fairly inexpensive as well. And the next thing you need to have is a large bottle sprays, basically. In my case, I don't have a lot of reptiles, and so this is basically all I need. Of course, if you have large enclosures, I would rather get a pump spray. They're fairly inexpensive. You can get them off Amazon. I don't have any affiliate links. I'm not going to sell you anything. However, having a nice pump one will probably save you a lot of time and a hassle. Gives finer mist as well, so I would shoot for one of those. However, since I really don't need to spray all that much, I really don't need it. So a big spray bottle, and of course you can also have something else there that I'm going to be talking about now that you really do need to have, and that is disinfectants. Things like chlorhexidine or vinegar-based solutions, stuff like that. You need to have on hand to clean, right? Clean and sanitize. Make sure that there's not a huge bacterial load in your animals' enclosures. You know, it's nice to have, and it's probably required to have to make sure your animal stays in a nice, healthy environment. Of course, if you have things like a cleanup crew and a bioactive setup, that's nice. However, when your crested gecko goes on the side of the glass and you need something to clean it up with, chlorhexidine or vinegar-based solutions work very well. And you probably need to have them in these bottles, right? Of course, I marked mine properly with water, and the chlorhexidine solution I have that I mix says disinfectant and has X's on it, just to make sure that I don't confuse the two. Because you really don't want to spray your animal thinking you're spraying water and then it being disinfectant. That would suck. Next thing you should have is disposable gloves. I have mine here. Have mine in plastic bag. I really don't need you really don't need them for. I have these guys simply because I don't want to graft poop with my bare hands, right? Some people have them with like dart frogs because they don't want to pass on any chemicals on their hands to their frogs. However, I don't have frogs. I have ball pythons that take big nasty poops. And so these guys prevent me from having to touch poop with my bare hands. Because of the big pandemic, it was a little harder to get hold of gloves. However, disposable gloves are always a good thing to have. Of course, you might not care and, use tongues or something to remove the poop. However, plastic disposable gloves are always a good thing to have around. The next thing is really just, to keeping your sanity in check, and that is having some place to put your animals. I would highly recommend something like a vacant enclosure. When I clean my ball python enclosures, it is a bit of a hassle. It kind of sucks because I have to hold them with one hand and work with the other. Sometimes I I don't want to put my male ball python into another female's enclosure because they might get uncomfortable and the male might put that female off of food, or it might cause some stress, so I have to hold the snake. I don't know. So you always need to have some place to put your snakes. I had an extra bin like the ones back there where I put my ball python while I clean their enclosure. However, since I'm gonna be getting another rack soon, I'm gonna be using the extra rack space for that, right? So it's always nice having a different enclosure you can put your animals in while you're having to go in there and clean, disinfect, and all that good stuff. The next thing you might kind of need, depending on the type of reptiles you have, are bug zappers. I have this bug zapper here. It's a cheap one I got off of Amazon. You want to get one that has a high enough rating that it doesn't burn down your house. However, since I have ball pythons, there are quite a bit of fungus gnats. Now, I don't have a ton of them. I don't keep it as humid for them to be an issue. And I'm very good with cleaning out substrate and making sure that everything is sanitized. So knock on wood, they haven't been an issue yet. However, I do get some, and that's where this thing comes into play. And I think if anything, it might be because of this thing keeps their numbers low enough that they really don't be an issue for me. Now, bug zappers, like I said, you want to buy a good enough one that it doesn't burn down your house, and they are pretty cool. I keep them only on during the night. I don't keep them running during the day, and it has saved my butt several times. A lot of times when I start seeing that there's quite a few fruit flies or fungus gnats, I turn this thing on, and within a couple, maybe about a week, they're really not an issue anymore. And so they're pretty prevalent with people keeping tropical species of reptiles for that good reason. Now, the next thing that you should probably have in your toolbox are pipettes. I have small ones like this. Now, I use this mostly to properly measure the amount of water that goes into water crystals for my crickets. However, they can be used for medications. They can be used to if your animal is dehydrated for whatever reason, you can probably pipette up some water and give it to them through their mouths a little better with a pipette. Pipettes are probably a very good thing to have, just in case. Of course, their use is far and few in between. However, I think it's a nice tool to have on hand in case anything happens. Next is, especially if you're keeping tropical species, pretty important, and that is keeping some antifungal creams. Neosporin. There's another one called ketoconazole. Ketoconazole, I think is how you pronounce it. These are antifungals. With my ball pythons, it's really not much of an issue. However, there is a case where Sprinkles, my male ball python, has been getting pretty active, and since his enclosure is a little too small for him right now, like I said already, his larger bin is on the way. He has been rubbing his face a bit on his enclosure. Because of that, it caused a little bruising, and because of that, he might get an infection. Obviously, I immediately started treating with Neosporin and some other antibiotics. The wound isn't deep, however, it was a little inflamed, and it's been going down. When I brought in a ball python to a vet because of a similar situation, the vet recommended me I grab a little bit of the cyclohexadine solution on like a paper towel and just gently dab. Obviously, you want to make sure that the solution is diluted and have it be done daily. However, having these antifungal creams, if you're keeping, tropical species that requires a little higher humidity, is pretty important, because the higher humidity can trigger some infections, right? So you want to be very careful with that. And lastly, a temperature gun. Temp guns are you should have temp guns, period. Temp guns really do help you see how hot your hot spot is getting. You can buy a lamp and it can tell you, oh, it's gonna get this hot at 2 feet. However, it might get hotter, it might get colder. You might think your thermostat is telling you the right temperature when you're running it. However, it could be drastically different when you check with your temp gun. I know there was a time where I saw that my ball pythons were always, for around a day or two, they were always out of their hides, which is on the hot end. And so I went in there with a temp gun, and I saw that the temp was around 8 degrees higher than it should have been. So instead of it being, a 90s, it was like around 98. I immediately looked around and troubleshooted the problem, and the temperature went back down, and they're back in their hides, right? Because I had that temp gun, I was able to see that the temperature in their hotspot was too damn high. And if you have a fairly intricate setups with like bioactives and stuff, and you have a heat lamp on top, you can really see how hot it's gonna get. If it gets too hot where it might burn your animal, you're able to tone it back down a little bit. Maybe set your lamp up a little higher. So temp guns overall are pretty much a necessity. Temp guns you should probably go out and buy one. You can buy an expensive one, however, you can get a fairly inexpensive, a cheap one as well. Of course, you're basically gonna get what you pay for, and if you get a better one, it'll be a whole lot more accurate than a small cheap one, right? Alright, so this has been some of the tools of the trade. If you like the video, leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you have any other tools that you use that have really proven itself to be worthwhile, leave them down in the comments. I'll check it out and see if there's anything else. And as always, guys, thanks for coming by and checking out the video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks, guys.